Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Just Reading Podcast. Today, our featured book is Kennedy Ryan's Before I Let Go. And let me just tell you about this book. This book was a phenomenal read. Miss Ryan did not disappoint with this book. So, it's about a divorced couple, Yasmin and Josiah, and they experience a massive loss, two actually, very close together, and their marriage takes a hit. And they, in turn, end up divorcing. But they're not completely out of each other's lives because they co parent. They have two beautiful children that they raise together, and they run a business together as well. So, because they're constantly in each other's lives, of course, it's very hard to completely separate from each other. So, a few tropes that is highlighted: it's contemporary, it's second chance, it's a divorced couple. There's one bed tropes. There's pining, of course, and just be mindful of some triggers as well. So there are losses: loss of parent, loss of a child, divorce, mental health issues are highlighted, specifically depression and grief. So as you dive into it, if you choose to, just keep those in mind. Those things can be a bit triggering for us. What I can say, though, is that Ms. Ryan does a fantastic job of weaving her story in such a way where you have all the feels. It does make you cry, but it makes you laugh and it makes you happy at the end. Once you get through everything, it definitely makes you happy at the end. Um, Also, we have to also take into account that these topics are heavy. It's still a romance, still considered romance, but it does have elements of women's fiction. And this honestly was the first book I have read that did such a superb job of explaining and describing depression and depressive episodes in such a way that I could connect to the character. Like, I empathized with Yasmin so much, and it was all due to Miss Ryan's writing. It was all due to Kennedy Ryan's writing. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Okay, so let's talk before I let go. Okay. Um no one enters a relationship expecting it to fail. When we all go into our relationships, we go in expecting the happily ever after. Not that we're wearing our hearts on our sleeves, but it's the human condition of wanting to belong and wanting to be loved and accepted for who we are, and to do the same for someone else. So Yasmin and Josiah meet when they're not high school, college students. They meet when they're in college, and they fall in love. And Josiah, he falls for Yasmin so hard, and they love each other. They get married, they build a life together, they have kids, they open their business, they opened a restaurant, and they were just going through the paces. And then they experienced the losses back to back. So Josiah has an aunt that takes care of him, or took care of him in his youth because his parents passed away. Remember that trope of loss of a parent. And she becomes his world. She becomes the woman who his guiding light, his guiding force, that parental figure. And she is a wonderful cook. And the restaurant that he and Yasmin opened together features her recipes. So they lose Aunt Bird, and it hits them really hard. And then shortly after that, they have their own personal loss, and it hits them hard as well. Not just the loss, but how the loss happened. Yasmin spirals and she can't see herself out of it, and she's the one that asks for the divorce. And Josiah's heartbroken because they promised that they would love each other forever, and they have this one thing that they say to each other, that I will not say, because I want you to read it if you choose to do so and enjoy it for yourself. But it's so heart wrenching. It's I'm trying to be good and not be spoilery, but I don't think I can help it. And so forgive me, and I'll make sure that you guys know going in that, it might have a bit of a few spoilers. But so click at your own risk. But he doesn't take it very very well. Yasmin, she understands that, she's fighting for herself. At least she recognizes that she wants to get better. She seeks and goes to therapy, which again is another topic that people have a lot of opinions on. But she decides to go, and he didn't want to go. He pushed back, and but after the divorce, he ends up going to therapy because he wanted to be a good example for their kids, specifically their son. And it ends up helping him. And he dives into a lot of his own childhood traumas and how that affected how he related to Yasmin and what was happening with them and within their lives. And so bit by bit, they start to kind of find themselves back together again, like reconnecting again. They try to date other people, but they're not done with each other. They're not done with each other. And again, the title, Before I Let Go. And they find themselves back together in such a wonderful way. Okay, so Kennedy Ryan also, at the end of the book, there are discussion topics that help with your understanding of the story, and we used some of those in our own discussion after we had read the book. And so I pulled a few of them that resonated with me, and I thought about comparing the younger characters, Josiah and Yasmin, and how they were together when they were younger compared to how they were when they were older. And I'm glancing over at my notes. So if you hear papers being ruffled around, that's what that is. So think about how when you're young and you're filled with, all the dreams that you have and young love, and you're building your life together. Life teaches us a lot, and some experiences are not truly understood until they're lived. And so think we change as we grow, and who we are when we're 23 is not who we are 20 years down the road, after we've lived and lost and had all the experiences that we've had. We get jobs, we lose jobs, we have children, we become moms, we become dads, we become entrepreneurs, we run our own businesses, we become employers, we have employees. And so a lot of what happened with them was just, it was a lot. And the losses change you sometimes in ways that you never thought would change you. And that's what happened with Yasmin. At one point in the book, she says that they talk about her strength and how strong she was. And yet, you know, it hit her really hard. But those kinds of losses, you never know how it's going to affect you until it affects you. You never know how you're going to walk through that until you have to walk through that. And even Josiah and how he responded to the losses that happened in their lives, it took toll on both of them, a toll on both of them. And they're two separate people who are loving and living and building a life together, but they have different ways of handling heavy, heavy emotions. So they dealt with it in the best way they knew at the time, and they had to just separate. One of the questions was, Did they have to divorce? Was divorce really the solution at the time? My opinion is yes. At the time, it needed to happen to help them reconnect, to help them find their way back to each other. And not every relationship is like that. And a lot of relationships, as we know, do not survive heavy losses for whatever reason. But it's good that Miss Ryan wrote a story where the characters reconnected even after their loss, even after everything that they had to go through. They let go, but they didn't really let go of each other. Right? Okay. And so we talked about how how they handled and navigated the marriage, the losses, that moment where they were single and separated from each other and had that time to heal. Um, Yasmin's depression and how it affected her, and I felt such empathy for Yasmin and empathy for Josiah, even because he lost. A lot of times, people focus sometimes on the women and how much they lose. And it's true because it's our bodies. And so when things happen, it's internal for us. But the men in our lives, they lose things too. It's hard for them because they have no control over those kinds of losses. And that was how I empathized with Josiah as a protector and a father and a husband. How could he protect his wife, his heartmate, from that loss? He could not. It was just lifing. And that's doubly hard for them because they put themselves in that role to almost be a shield. And he wasn't able to shield her from that. He wasn't able to shield her from her own emotions. He wasn't able to shield her from how she was responding. He couldn't even handle his emotions at the time, and it hit him really hard. And but he loved her and their family. And but he gave her up. He fought, but then he gave her up, and he allowed her that space. And when he went to therapy and allowed himself to heal, and there's no shame in therapy. There's no shame in it. And I know this is a very opinionated thing, and everybody has a right to their opinion. And we as people and humans have to do what is best for us. And that's just the end of it. If that's what you need to do to be healthy and whole, then that's what you do. And, I love the fact that Miss Ryan wrote the story she wrote in such a way. It made me happy. It made me sad. It made me cry. It made me anxious. It triggered me. Um, and it also gave me what I wanted from a good story. At the end, I had a book hangover for 2 days after I read Before I Let Go. I just had to sit with it. I had to sit with it and marinate on it and reflect on it. And it just did all the things. It did all the things. And I hope when you pick it up, if you pick it up, that it does the same for you. If nothing else, that you just enjoy a good story. She's an excellent author. I've read a few of her books, and so far so good. So far, she hasn't disappointed. She has quite a backlog as well, quite a backlist, and a lot of her indie books are now becoming more traditionally published, so they should be out there for people who have never heard of her before. But oh my god, this book was fantastic, guys. Pick it up if you are, and it was the also, if you're not too keen on a lot of spice, there's spice, but it's not overly spicy. Like the book, is more of an emotional, and that's why I suppose there's a debate about whether it's really women's fiction, because it has elements of that. And so yes, there's open door scenes, but it's like a few, so it's nothing too heavy for readers who don't really like too many open door scenes. But there is some. But again, if you want, skip over it. I've done that. I've skipped over scenes sometimes that I feel pull me out of the story. Um, but it's the emotion of it. It really is the emotion of it. The book pulls you in and holds you, and you're just reading from one moment to the next and rooting for the characters and feeling for the characters. And it also has a very it also has a very friendship driven trope as well. Yasmin has some really good girlfriends, and they hold her hand and they walk through it, and we all need that support system, right? So it has a friendship trope. Josiah as well has a good friend that kind of helps walk him through and navigate certain aspects of his life. So Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, there are book club discussion topics at the end of the story. So you can go through it with your book club if you have one, or just on your own. And enjoy, guys. Enjoy. It was a phenomenal read that I hope you will enjoy as well. And I feel like this was a bit rambly, but I hope that it enticed you, as always, to just pick up a book and just keep on reading. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the next episode.